Let me make sure that we can't hear. Oh, here we go. 1 second. Cool. All right. So we're live on YouTube now. We're joined by world class magician, right? David Ranalli, here to talk a little bit.
How's it
going? Pretty good. Talk a little bit about something that we've never really touched on, but sustainability during a time of crisis. Everybody knows what the hell is going on right now. Coronavirus, COVID-19. You can't avoid it. So I think this is a perfect topic, especially with the amount of people that are kind of freaking out.
Sure.
So
I'm calm. I'm as calm as I can be. That's what's nice about the approaches that I've taken with my incorporating sustainability into my life, because I saw a few years ago kind of the writing on the wall. People are going to have to make lifestyle changes, and so I kind of started creating a project that's getting some attention. And so thank you for having me on to kind of talk about it and everything. So
no, of course. And if you can, David, give us a little bit of background about what you do.
Well, I do many things, many hobbies and many fun, creative things outlets that I aim for. But I'm a professional magician, as you can probably guess. Ain't working too much right now with the way that events have been canceled and everything. And all of my entertainer friends were all either freaking out or being like, how are we going to come out ahead of this? And so that's one of the nice things about the internet and being able to connect with a lot of like-minded people is, you create culture. And right now, kind of what we're doing is creating culture and connecting with your YouTube audience, so that hopefully we can kind of bring culture and have kind of boots on the ground in regards to this issue. But I've toured events and I've seen a lot of the country. And whenever I was not touring, I would come home and just garden because I needed to stay active. I'd be in the car a lot, be on stage a lot, be in front of a lot of audiences and cameras, and always looking at pictures of myself for marketing materials and everything. And so it gets kind of exhausting. So I needed something to kind of escape to. And I live on a half acre. And so I decided to build something called a food forest, which is a garden style that mimics the biology of a forest, but everything is edible.
Okay.
Or functional in some way.
Okay. So like when I close my eyes, and like not everybody's watching on YouTube, so some people are going to be listening to this on audio, you hear food forest and you think of just like, I don't know, in my head, it came to like Willy Wonka, right? Where you could eat everything.
It is kind of like that. That's
okay, cool. So I'm not far
fun
off
about it.
Yeah.
It feels very magical to me. To me, I didn't feel like I understood what magic could feel like until I started gardening. As lame as that may sound, it's a place for to just get quiet, focus on your direct interaction with the planet and your health and your well-being. And it's a very meditative thing to do. So people who don't like to meditate often or don't have any kind of spiritual practice that they come from, gardening is an easy way to sort of get that automatically.
And how fast did it switch from garden to forest? Like what happened in between there?
Sure. So a food forest, there are many different types of food forests. This is a very deep subject. So I'm going to try to keep it simple. But basically, the way that so when you think of a vegetable garden, what do you think of?
Like tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, carrots.
Okay. So those are all
on the
things,
ground, like on the ground.
Yeah, on the ground that grow. Those are called annual plants. You only get them really when the sun is in peak summertime. There are winter vegetables and stuff like that, but they are annuals. They grow once and then they die. And whatever you pick from it, you get. What a food forest is primarily is a permanent planting where everything comes back year after year. So it's more like a forest. The forest never dies. It just goes to sleep and then comes back in the springtime. So if you understand the way the plants operate, you can quite literally tap into the energy of an ecosystem and use it to your advantage. So, I mean, that's what a garden is. But a food forest is sort of, you rely heavily on perennial plants for your lifestyle, which is how humans have lived for all of our existence. I mean, that's not a new thing.
And
So.
what percentage of the food that you consume, that isn't like animal product, I suppose, comes from your forest?
So that's something that's getting year after year. There's new things like, I mean, even do you know what hostas are? They're a very common plant in a yard.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so they're like a plant that just comes back every year. It's a nice little bushy thing. You'd know it if you saw it. Those I found out the shoots are actually edible when they're coming through in the springtime. So I mean there's a food that was right there that I didn't even realize was there. So I mean I'm always continually finding something and discovering something new about the garden that I live in. So as far as percentage of my actual diet goes, that keeps increasing. Last year I got a lot of my vegetables through the summertime. I pretty much only eat eggs from my chickens. I very rarely buy them, and it's usually dead in the wintertime when they're not laying at all. And so I have kind of like a basic diet. You can get a basic kind of vegan diet if you are willing to put in the work and get it from home. So that's sort of the goal, is to get a certain percentage of meals that I eat from home and try to get some metrics to it. I'm not really trying to judge it that much right now. So.
Right. Right. And when did that become something that was important for like you and your lifestyle? Was there like an event that happened, or was it like a slow progression?
I'd always, just like I always liked magic, I always liked nature and watching documentaries. And my mom was always, she came from Mexico on a farm. And so when she came to the United States, she had this kind of longing, like, I miss the farm life. I miss gathering from nature, kind of a thing. And the food there is delicious, and she's a great cook. So, hi, Mom. But but that always kind of stayed with me. And then also, when I started, the thing that sort of clicked where I really wanted to lean into it is because, I tried various projects around the house, but I was like, you know what? I hear a lot of stuff about climate change and all these things. Nobody really seems to be doing anything about it. Maybe I can conduct some kind of a little experiment, and could also, and I was thinking about gardening too, because I was like, in the summertime, I don't have many events. Most of my events are like the summertime is usually pretty slow for the way that my business is structured as far as performing goes. So I was like, hey, I could have something to do in the summertime. And maybe, get something out of it. At least if I'm mowing this big lawn, might as well get something for it. I might as well put some energy into something that's going to sustain me. So.
Right.
But it all just seems to fit. There's so many benefits to it. So
yeah, and I mean, is this something that people can transition to, like that are just kind of toying around with gardening and things like that, to where they can have a larger percentage of what they consume coming from the stuff that they grow in their own yards?
Sure. I mean, it's so I practice a very specific system for figuring out what works for your life in terms of sustainability. There's an actual system to it. It's called permaculture. Okay. And you can take classes on it. There's books on it. There's videos on it. This is a very specific style of understanding where your needs come from. And so you can sort of design your life it's a system of thriving using natural systems. It's kind of hard to describe unless you really get into it. But so we think about things in terms of, so you think about the things that are relevant to your life. Like I built my vegetable beds out of logs that came from some of the more mature trees on the property. Now that's something that was abundant nearby. I didn't have to go to the store and get any kind of wood from the store. And those logs produce mushrooms that you can make tea out of, and they're medicinal, and they've been used for thousands of years, and there's a lot of research on them. And there's becoming a big industry for mushrooms. So so you get two things out of one thing. So you learn to design your life in a way where you can get the maximum output for whatever is a comfortable input for you,
right?
In terms of energy and enthusiasm.
So I'm still thinking about those mushrooms. Was that something that you had to like research to make sure that you were eating something that wasn't going to be potentially like poisonous? Like, were you cross-referencing pictures or?
Sure. Yeah. No, I always, I try to be very cautious about that, and don't eat or make tea out of any mushroom that if you don't know what it is. Don't touch it if you don't know what it is. There's very basic things that you can do to incorporate mushrooms into your life, and incorporating any of this into your life really stems from relying on it in some capacity. Like, I'm relying on growing food, so therefore I care for it, and it's fits the way that I am, you know. But anyway, so the you know what, I'm going to try to make sure that this call coming in doesn't mess with us. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think it took your video away. There you go.
Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, cool. So so where was I? So so mushrooms, like, do I look them up? Yeah,
But
like
you were talking about changing your lifestyle because you rely on it, and I think that you were going down a good path with what you were saying there.
Yeah. So when it comes to like, I incorporate these things into my life because they fit my needs and what I'm looking to get out of life to have an abundant lifestyle and healthy lifestyle. So when it comes to like something like mushrooms, I can get what grows right here. I don't have to necessarily have a giant mushroom operation or get some kind of a big temperature controlled thing that you know, takes a lot of work or understanding or money. This is something that naturally grows that I can consume. And if I understand, you know, the 10 most common mushrooms near me, and I know how to recognize the lookalikes, it just becomes natural. You know,
Right.
like I took my 4-year-old to Eagle Creek, and I was looking for mushrooms, and we were just taking a hike, and we had nothing to do, as a lot of us do right now. And I found a mushroom patch of something called wood ear mushrooms, and they look like a little ear, and they're kind of rubbery, and they're great in soups. They're used all over Asia, and they're very, very common. So we had fun picking a few of those, and then we were walking, and he found a patch of his own. You know, like, he's 4 years old, and he was able to recognize it instantly. It's a very natural thing for us to be able to do, to get in touch with our food. It's just so lost because we have all of these, I mean, just because of the way that our modern society is built. So it's sort of on us to learn to re-engage with our food in a more direct way.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you there. And I think that the thing that really stuck out to me that you were talking about was just this like reliance upon things, right? And you adapt your lifestyle because you rely on the things that you're growing to sustain you. And right
Yeah.
now, and we're kind of seeing this play out in a way, is people rely on grocery stores and other things to like provide things for them. So I think it's like super prescient right now just to be talking about some of that stuff. So for people that might want to get started and things like that, like what type of advice do you give friends or anybody that asks you questions?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've had some people reaching out and people being like, "Hey, I want to know more about this stuff." So which is perfect because I don't mind talking about it. So the thing that I would say is it's because this is again a very deep subject, and I'm trying to present it in a way that's that people can understand, but also shows that it's a slow burn. Don't I mean, granted, we're in a bit of a crisis right now, so that kind of is waking people up to it. But eventually, if you decide to sort of incorporate sustainability and alternative ways of getting your needs, you're going to have to assess your lifestyle, and you're going to have to you know, you can, and no one size fits all. It's relative to your situation,
Right.
Which is an empowering thing. It's a thing where you can figure out what makes sense for you, and helps you understand what it is that you've been doing with yourself and ways that you can sort of be better. But anyway, so I mean, it's different for, you know, the apartment dweller is going to have a different approach than somebody who lives in maybe a suburban home. You know, so are you, you're in an apartment, would I assume? Or is that a
No,
house?
we're in a house. House, yeah.
What's that?
It's a house.
Okay, so it's a house. So
Yeah.
do you have like a garden or anything?
No, but we have like a ton of like open field in our backyard and then like side yard and stuff.
Sure. So, you know, it sounds like you have space let's just theorize, hey, baby wants to start a garden. If you've got space, you've already got kind of a cleared field. You can, there's many different types of things you could do. If you just want to get vegetables, you're going to need some kinds of beds. If you want to get fruit trees, you got to buy fruit trees. If you want to collect rainwater, either for the garden or as an emergency source, just in case something happens, you know, you got to get some kind of a container, you know, a barrel, and and find the best place in your yard to do it. Food is an easy way for people, I think, to get is sort of like a gateway drug for lifestyle change, because it's like changing a light bulb for efficient versus not efficient. I mean, that's not very. I mean, it's exciting to know that we're using less energy and maybe we'll save money, but it's not going to lure humanity back to the forest. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the thing that wakes us up and says, hey, I got to be maybe changing a few things in my life, and that's okay. Because the alternative is what? Society crumbles. Well, we can't get resources, or people get sick, or and who wants to live like that? So, but anyway, so let's should we shift back to your garden, Adrian's garden? So are you with me so far?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. So let's just say you wanted to start an actual like food forest. Okay, out of this box of land is going to turn into a mini ecology of a forest. Well, you have to have an environment that feels like a forest, and a forest has a forest floor, which has its own kind of layers of nutrition to it, and then trees grow in sequence. If you have just a bare patch of land, over time it will eventually become a forest. That's just how nature. If you don't disturb it, no animals come through and are picking at it, it will grow. So what we get to do as designers of maybe a forest garden would say, hey, let's, we're going to put cardboard, snuff out the grass, and then we're going to create and mimic a forest floor. So maybe you get a ton of wood chips in there, you gather leaves from them all over. You get it so that you got lots of organic matter that will break down over time. And then you got to start bringing in the trees. And the way that you bring in the trees and all of the different kinds of layers to what a forest is made up of will be dependent upon what your climate is, how natural of an approach you kind of want to go with it, or if you're just going to make kind of a quick kind of orchard of some kind. There's a million different ways that you could do it.
Right.
But it's not undoable. I did it by myself. So, and mine is relative to my situation, which was we had big existing trees in the neighborhood. So we had an existing canopy, because again, forests are made up of 7 layers. There's there's vines, there's canopy trees, there's subcanopy, there's a bunch of different sections to how a forest is structured. And so we pretty much had to interplant and create, sort of our own system to it. So I have some fruits, some stuff's fruiting, some stuff's not fruiting, some stuff. The entire lawn itself is edible.
Can you show us? Can you walk us through?
Yeah, let's go through. Let's walk. Let's go for a walk. And if I get disconnected, then just let me know, I'll call back or something.
You can blame it on me.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's start. I guess we'll start with the chickens, because they're kind of the engine of the food forest, which they create the compost. They absorb all of the dead plants, and I'll see if I can switch this around possibly.
Do your neighbors hate you for having chickens or no?
Well, my elderly neighbor loves it. She helps out, and I give her eggs and some other vegetables, and she loves it. So you can see the chickens are in a big pen here, and that's all carbon. That is old tree wood chips. There's leaves in there. This sucks down the carbon. The plants get the carbon from the atmosphere, but this is a waste source from the local neighborhood that locks up the carbon. Does that make sense?
That's pretty awesome.
And they are bringing manure to the carbon, which then goes out into the garden and helps fertilize everything. So they get rid of the food waste, and they've got their coop here. It's on an automatic timer. The door is, so I don't have to come out each morning and night to open it, because that's kind of annoying. It got annoying, I should say. And as we open up right here, we will see we've got plenty of eggs.
Oh man.
We've got, and of course they're delicious.
So do chickens lay those eggs every single day? How often?
Yeah, pretty much. So it depends on the chicken, depends on the area that you live in. Because we have kind of a heavy a colder winter that's not so sunny. They don't get as many sun hours, so they don't lay as often. But yeah, roughly one a day. So there you go.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So it starts with the chickens, and they're kind of like the start.
Yeah, they help. You know, I use them to, if I find that there's like termites or something, I'll have them go attack it. They prep my veg beds, so they actually help out. They do a lot of functions other than just breaking down the compost and also giving us eggs. So they have many different functions to it. This is a peach tree. It's probably going to give us a lot of peaches this year. There's my cats. And this situation kind of mimics a forest floor. So so we got some logs in here. We've got some mulch on top of a bunch of the compost, and I put in some mushrooms in here. So some of that's starting. So then you know, a couple times a year this will flush through with mushrooms, and then boom, I've got kind of portobello style mushrooms with also being able to plant in here, you know, herbs or any kind of vegetables, those kinds of things. So can you still hear me all good?
Yeah. We're
okay,
good.
cool.
I'm just kind of in awe of some of the stuff you have going on.
Yeah, I've got a few apple trees. There's a cherry tree over there. Mushrooms do grow in there. Currants. There's a sorrel coming up here, so that's like a green that comes up in the springtime every year. Don't have to really do anything with it. We've got this bin right here will be, I'll be filling it with wood chips and some of the mushroom mycelium, so that it'll be filled with mushrooms. I'll be getting tons of mushrooms, and they get like as big as your head, so that'll be
my gosh,
pretty funny. And then got some water. Got my cat again. There's elderberries.
And so what have you found?
There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, what have
Real
you
quick,
found?
there's a ton of stuff. I could show you a ton of stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, what have you found that grows the best in kind of your, you know, Indiana, I suppose, in an Indiana backyard? What have you found that really grows well?
There's, I mean, you get all the, it just depends on how well you make the soil, because every place in the world grows something. Okay, so that's the perennials that will be there year after year, and then there's also certain annuals that will grow some places but not other places. So I mean, there's, you know, any kind of vegetable you could think of. There's specific types of it just depends on the plant, depends on the situation. So
got it. And do you have a favorite thing that you're growing in your forest? Like, what is your favorite part of your forest?
One of the chickens is actually it's called a Gothic chicken, and it's all black. I'll try to get a good look at her, but it's all black, and the bones are black, the meat is black, the eyes are black, the tongue is black, everything's black. She's not out right now, but or maybe she is. Yeah, she is. And I guess it's from Indonesia, and I guess they maybe use them for black magic over there or something, but I just have it because it's a kooky little chicken. She doesn't even really lay that well. She's just fun.
That reminds me, you mentioned your mother being from Mexico. I always have the thought of like El Gallo Negro, but that's like rooster, like the black rooster.
Yeah. There you
go. So I think that it's cool that you're doing something like that. Is sustainability outside of just food something that you kind of have in practice in all other areas of your life as well, or try to?
Well, when I think about I'm kind of thinking about a lot about how this applies on a bigger context, because this is has been a fun project for me. It's good for my health and good for everything that I'm just kind of, it just makes me feel good to live in this kind of a place. Right. It's a terrarium for myself. But this can be applied to any number of industries, grocery stores. It could be applied to the fabric industry. It could be applied to, because if you have a good understanding of the plants, that you're growing, you can reduce the amount of pesticides that you're using, the amount of water that you need, everything. You can make it a solution that creates enough abundance and byproduct that you can, the goal is just to create a ton of abundance and just pay it forward. That's the goal of the whole thing. So it's not necessarily that we're looking to get super rich or have this kind of like crazy lifestyle, but you can create entire industries off of this style of design that's good for the planet, good for people, and it is insulated against airlines shutting down, or insulated against a virus that's people are worried about the supply chains right now because of the coronavirus, and I don't think that they'll really get disrupted because a lot of it's kind of automated.
Right.
But what if the farmers could not work, or it hits pretty bad in one area, and you've got choppy crop production? There still needs to be somebody out on the tractor. So understanding how to localize and think about the way that we do things, I think, is where people are at. We can do anything that we want in the world. We know everybody. We've of everybody's phone number. But what are we doing to create a strong local quality lifestyle and way that we do business is kind of I think what people will be thinking about moving forward.
Right. That's awesome. So I want to ask you just a couple of questions. We're doing this whole series just to talk to different business owners, artists, entertainers like yourself, civic leaders, just on how they're handling the situation. So obviously you said at the top of the show that none of your shows are going on. So what are you doing to adapt or pivot during this time, if there is anything that you could be doing?
Well, I'm doing stuff like this. I've thought about this stuff a lot, and I've tried to figure out ways that I can bring this to different industries. My thing that I'm doing right now is just talking about it, because it's the more we have a strong understanding about how we can localize and organize in our local area, the more we're going to have people who are not, it's easy enough that we have big economic upsets, entire industries go, coal, whatever, giving people the way of thinking about it. How can you redesign something that maybe became a problem into a solution? That's the thing that permaculture and people who are practicing this kind of stuff have to offer right now. There's nothing you need to believe in. You know what I mean? There's nothing that you need to really do. You need to go and do it, and you need to observe what's actually happening in your local area. And how can you argue against that? You're just empowering yourself. It's just a method of self-empowerment. So, so that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is just trying to get the message out there. But as far as like my actual magic business goes, I mean, this is I started my career on the notion that I was always going to be able to be in front of people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this is a weird situation where it's like I can't go and do crazy things in front of a group of 30 to 50 people, whatever. So this is very strange for me, but I'm okay with it. I mean, like I don't do this. I don't do magic anymore because I do it as a career, but I also do it because I love it, and I'm not doing it because I'm trying to if anything, I'm trying to get attention with stuff that I think could help people. And because there's so many problems in the world, and all of them have solutions. You know what I mean? Like there's always a solution to something. So it's being on stage has been fun for a long time. So if this is what I have to give my time to, and my career is literally stopped, okay, I'm cool with that. Whatever.
Well, and I think what kind of what you're saying in between the lines there is that like the gratitude for having the time, right? Like, and I might be putting words in your mouth, so I apologize, but like having this career as a magician allowed you the opportunity to have the freedom to explore things like what you're doing with your food forest, right?
That's
because
true.
Of the time off. And now you've kind of honed those skills. So you're in a position where when one thing stops, you've kind of become your own expert on this thing that you can now like transition into. Hey, I can use this, this knowledge that I've gained over the last couple of years to really help people do this themselves and empower them to do that. Right.
Yeah. I think that's really, I mean, it's nice that I have had the luxury to be able to explore something that was calling to me. I've always just been like that, though. It's always I've always worked two jobs. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've always been a magician. I've always been supporting myself kind of economically, but like, you know, my shows have been supporting me economically. And I build enough skills I try to build different skills all the time so that if something does happen, I can adjust, I can adapt to it. You know, it's hard enough being a business owner. I mean, I'm sure you know, what that's like. You know, there's so many different things that you have to take care of.
Right.
So no, I like the idea of being able to take risks, but also have a safety net of some kind. This just
Right.
happens to be a skill set that I've been working on, and actual physical food that I could eat. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to let you go here with just a couple
sound
of
good, man?
last questions. There's obviously a lot of people that are stuck at home, whether they're working or just can't go to work or have been laid off. So we want to give them something to take away. So a couple questions that I want to ask. One, what are some good resources if people want to look into something more about permaculture, like a good book or a good documentary or a good website that they can use to go start
Okay.
learning about some of this stuff?
Sure. So the way that you can always there are courses out there. You can go to local spots that will give you hands-on experience. It's kind of like a little mini trade school, but it's just enough to set you on your path. It itself is not the path. If people want to go out and actually
Uh-oh. We might have lost him. We will see if he logs back on. We have him here. David. No, it looks like he's still there. We'll give it a second. Jeff, you'll have to cut. You'll have to cut this portion out. It'll still be in the YouTube video, but audio we shall see. While I keep talking to myself here, I think it's yeah, we just lost him, but it's pretty cool that people are out there creating stuff that makes their own lives self-sustainable. I think right now one of the things that we're freaking out about, just because we watch so much TV, like right now with the news, it's just like worrying that things aren't going to be available. I mean, I went to the grocery store maybe 4 days in a row and couldn't find any chicken, right? Eggs weren't as scarce, but there's like certain things that just aren't available. And I can see how having a food forest or your own supply chain of things to support you or supplement you in times of crisis can be very, not just rewarding, but relaxing and kind of understanding that you don't need to rely on anybody else for that kind of stuff. Hey, you're back. All right, cool. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, wonderful. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, my phone, I had to get it charged up. Where were we?
We were talking about resources for people,
Sure.
and you said that you were going somewhere with it. There was classes.
You can take an actual course, or you can just check out some books. There's good YouTubes. Let me go grab a couple books. I'll be right.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, here's the thing. We started doing these YouTube live videos right now just because we're all kind of quarantined, at least social distancing. So you don't know what we're gonna get. You don't know what to expect. So
ready.
All right.
So if you want to occupy yourself, really good and funny book. I'm gonna try to get the light correct here. Building a Better World in Your Backyard Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys. It's a really good book. It covers everything that you could possibly want to know about. It's kind of like a permaculture off-grid approach, but it's just a nice way to think about how every chapter just gives you something really compelling to think about. Nice. And then Backyard Homestead, this is much more oriented towards actual food production.
And who's the author? I feel like I've heard of that one, but I could be crazy.
Backyard Homestead is Carlene Madigan.
Oh, no.
And Building a Better World is Paul Wheaton. And he also has a great resource called Permies.com. And it's its own little subculture, you know what I mean? And then Gaia's Garden. Well, let me get that. Gaia's Garden. Yeah. This is by Toby Hemingway. He was a really good permaculture thinker. I think he died a few years ago, but that's like his classic, iconic kind of gardening book. It's much more oriented towards gardening, but and the actual kind of permaculture principles. So that's a good one. And then yeah, there's courses out there. There's guys like Matt Powers, Jeff Lawton. There's lots of people out there practicing this stuff that have established projects, and we have to get these kinds of things to become the model for interesting and new places that we haven't discovered yet. So
I love it. And are you binging anything right now? Music, movies, shows?
No, you know what? I'm
No.
in the middle of it's funny. I'm not performing right now, but I'm finishing up a writing job that I'm doing for a kind of theater group that's really fun. So I'm actually writing kind of scripts and stuff like this. I've actually been working even at doing this is the last thing that I get to work on before there's kind of the hiatus from events. And I'm sure I'll be back to my events soon. I've got some later in the year. But this is an interesting time, man.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you walking us through your food forest, sharing some resources, and telling us a little bit more about how we can all get started to do our part.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Get to work, everyone.
All right. Thanks, David.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
See ya.